Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. The record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
The record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orit Connor.
Good morning and welcome to For the Record. Today being Monday, the 25th day of September 2017. I trust that everyone had an enjoyable, safe weekend. And I want to welcome you and I want to thank you, our listening and our viewing audience, for allowing Radio Cayman and by extension For the Record into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. Of course, For the Record is a show produced by the staff and the management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I am your host, Orit Connor. One of my co-hosts in the studio with me this morning, Dr. Steve McPhail. You're welcome to join us in the conversation every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 9:30 a.m. Our phone lines are always open unless we indicate to you that we're not taking any calls because we may be focusing on a particular subject. Otherwise, our phone lines are always open, and there is always someone there waiting to take your calls. Normally, 9 times out of 10, it is that beautiful radio voice of Miss Susan Watson. You can call us on our toll-free number provided courtesy of Flow. That toll-free number is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and the 949-6990. Of course, if you don't like to talk on the telephone, you can email us at For the Record, and that is one word, For the Record, at candw.ky. I want to do a little bit of housekeeping and a few shout-outs as well before I introduce Dr. McPhail with me this morning. And Miss Teresa is about to join us as well. She's coming in now. You always hear me talk about Awawa, living down in Rock Hole, Miss Alverni. She had a birthday last week, and I want to say to her a belated happy birthday on air. Saw her on Friday evening down in Rock Hole. She sat down with us and had some nice boiled count prepared by Mr. Graham Rankin, and we sat down there and we had a nice chat with Awawa. Of course, she is such a world traveler now. It's very difficult to know when she's on island and when she isn't on island, because she's always traveling to New Jersey and New York. And Awawa is 82 or 84 years old. Young, I should say, not old, young. And she is still traveling. So I want to give a shout out to her. It is also my understanding, and I haven't been able to confirm it, but we're getting it from good sources, that Miss Marie Martin, who is the principal at Georgetown Primary School, that this Friday she will be retiring from the service and from her service in education after 39 years of giving service to the government and the people of the Cayman Islands in the field of education. I want to say to her, happy retirement. And as usual, I will also say that we hope and trust that we do not regress in our effort to progress. We do not regress and end up with a non-Caymanian in that post as well. If we're looking to ensure that Caymanians hold the top positions in the Cayman Islands, those positions that they deserve, then that needs to continue to happen as well. So we trust that she will be replaced by a capable Caymanian. Not an easy role. Georgetown Primary has a stellar record when it comes to education, but there are challenges there in terms of the constituency which it serves. And they have some programs, after-school programs. In the Rockhole area, we see kids going home sometimes after 5 o'clock in the evening because they have stayed there for after-school programs to help them with their education as well. So we want to say happy retirement to Miss Marie Martin, and I am sure that she will still continue to be involved in one way or the other, as far as her community, as far as education is concerned as well. So with those few words, I want to say good morning to my two co-hosts, Dr. Steve Macfield and Miss Teresa. Folks, welcome again to For the Record, and I trust that you all had an enjoyable weekend as well.
Good morning to you, Mr. For the Record, and good morning to the co-host, Carissa Pitcairn. Yes, and good morning to all your listeners in For the Record land, and those who are listening abroad. OC, I had a great weekend this weekend. I relaxed a bit and didn't rush myself like I always do on the weekends. Usually I spend my time researching and reading and stuff. But this weekend I put my feet up and I relaxed. And after getting some very, very nice fresh fish and some fish soup, I'm in good shape this morning. How are you, Teresa?
Good morning, Steve. Dr. Steve, but Steve is my friend. Good morning, OC.
Good morning.
Not the Honorable OC. OC is my friend. Yeah, I have to admit, Steve, that I had a blessed weekend. I'm always grateful, always thankful for good health, good friends, and fellowship. So I'm wishing everyone a happy good morning and a blessed week. One of my kids saw me yesterday, when I was sitting down like Steve in the sofa, and I was watching a replay of Maxine Waters, and I think I sent you. She is just an amazing human being. I mean, she's a wonderful woman and a great congresswoman as well. And she speaks to power. She walks the walk and talks the talk. And so my kids one of the kids came out and saw me watching it on the television, because they've now organized the TV so that I can get access to YouTube on the TV. Didn't know this, so I was really grateful, very thankful. So the kid that came out said, "Well, Mom, you're not on the computer this morning," because like Steve, I'm always on the computer preparing and always sending OC a note. What are we discussing? How do you want to discuss it? And so on and so forth. But yesterday was the first morning in Centra's OC that I didn't get up and I wasn't researching.
Excellent. There are two things, two areas that we want to discuss. First of all, I want to take note of the fact that today actually is Government Monday, but we have no one from the government here today. So want to discuss an ongoing topic, not only here in the Cayman Islands, but we see the challenges in other jurisdictions like Trinidad as well. And the, I say quote unquote, reluctance by some persons in the community in terms of opening our arms and welcoming the victims of the hurricanes in the Eastern Caribbean. We see the debate going on in Trinidad, for instance, where Trinidad has
I saw that.
Prime Minister there. They want to welcome the Dominicans in there, and there's some pushback in relation to that. We hear similar sentiments here in the Cayman Islands, and sometimes for good reason, but I'd like to discuss that. I'd also like to discuss the constitutional talks want to go. I think people need to be more aware of what happened during those constitutional talks as well, because a lot of that went under the radar. And one of our listeners has also sent an email to me talking about the employment situation in the Cayman Islands. And I'll start off with the employment situation in the Cayman Islands. And the writer says, "Good morning, Mr. Connor, and your learned co-host. Firstly, let me congratulate you on your most informative talk show, which is a great enlightenment to your listeners. There is a matter that gives me great concern. We all know about the many recent high school graduates. Not all of them are academically inclined. And with how easy it is to obtain work permits in the Cayman Islands, I'm sure not that many of our graduates have been able to find jobs. Having said that, I have a suggestion that, okay, come on. I have a suggestion. Having said that, I have a suggestion that only needs for government to have the will to research the matter. There are many yachts and other ships registered in at our Maritime Authority. These ships all need crew members, such as bosuns, ABs, oilers, cooks, galley staff, etc. Caymanians are world-renowned for seamen. If our Maritime Authority would only try to negotiate with the shipping companies whose ships it registers for them to hire Caymanians as crew members, then school leavers who want a job that allows them to see the world as well as unemployed men would have the chance to acquire employment. I have a friend in Nicaragua and in Guanaja, Honduras. Both of them are crew members on cruise ships. Their country has a shipping agency like we had for national bulk carriers years ago. When the shipping companies needed a crew member for one of their ships, they contacted a shipping agency who would send them seamen from their pool of applicants. This is how it is done in the Philippines and in Jamaica as well. This is just food for thought for our Maritime Authority. Where there is a will, there is a way. Thank you for reading this email. We're going to take a commercial break. Dr. Steve, when we come back, I know you want to comment on that because you're constantly talking about the model that they have developed in Jamaica as well. As a matter of fact, I think there was something in the news last week where they are actually moving the facility into university as well. So, folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly. We also have one caller, and we will take that caller when we return from this commercial break. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I'm your host, Stuart Connor. My two co-hosts with me, Dr. Steve Macfield, Ms. Teresa Pitcairn. We have one caller on the line, so we're going to go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Yeah, good morning, Ms. Teresa. Good morning, Mr. Dr. Macfield and Mr. Connor.
Morning, sir.
I want to say something.
Good morning.
Yeah, I want to say something, and then I'll hang up, and then you can all respond to me, please. After I want to hear your take on it. I guess we're all aware that we have a lot of homeless people in Cayman. And a lot of people at the public is asking me to find out if these people that is coming here was ordered by England or the government just decided to do that. And we understand that most of them have jobs already. So it's a lot of people outside and they're concerned about that. Where is all these people going to live, plus their animals? And I don't think it's too fair for Caymanians because New Zealand could take some. England can take some as well. So we want to find out if this was ordered by the UK or if this is the Premier's doing, and I'll hang up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, caller, for that. First of all, based on what I have read, these are persons who have been relocated here by their employers who are based in the Cayman Islands, and they were working in places like the British Virgin Islands. Not sure about Anguilla as well. But they were relocated similar to what happened after Hurricane Ivan here in the Cayman Islands, where staff from Caymanian companies here were relocated to other jurisdictions. And we heard the story. We heard Minister McTaggart talk about the fact that you had a Canadian authority, the plane that brought them here, that came here to take their staff to Canada, even had blank passports, had passports in hand to be able to issue them on a temporary basis to persons entering Canada to be able to work and to issue those temporary passports for a period of 6 months. So I see it as us here extending a helping hand the same way that helping hand was extended to us when we faced similar situations. So they're staff members, but there also seems to be a policy that if there are children who need to attend school, there are arrangements for them to come to the Cayman Islands and to be able to attend school. I don't know all of the mechanics of that in terms of whether or not their families will be along with them, whether or not these are arrangements that they have to be made on their own. I only say that whatever help we can give, that needs to be done. It really should not be contingent. It shouldn't be a tit for tat, because we found ourselves in that situation before. No, I hear people saying, oh, we found ourselves in that situation, but they weren't the ones, those islands weren't the ones that extended their hands to us. Some of them were actually trying to take our business. Be that as it may, let the past be the past, and we need to do what is correct, what is morally correct as well. My panel.
And you know, in our Constitution, the preamble to our Constitution say that we are a Christian nation, and we ought to live by that vision that we have of ourselves, of our community. And the government, is trying to do as best as it can in the situation. I applaud the Premier and his team for going down to those islands to see what help they could give, and bearing in mind that we're not safe yet, that we can go and talk about should we help other people? We still have 2 months to go before we can even raise our voices. And as Orid has said, Mr. Connor has said, they're families of the people who have been working mostly in the offshore business in those countries, and what they're doing is relocating their businesses here so that they can continue their business from this location. We did the same thing. I remember one lawyer telling me that she took all of her business and she worked out of Miami for a while. And like you said, the Minister of Finance, Mr. McTaggart, said he gave us a story about when their employees at the company that he was working for at the time went to located to Canada, that Canadian immigration officer came down with blank passports to help people who didn't have travel documents so that they could enter Canada and work for 6 months. And so we have to give a helping hand, stretch a helping hand whenever we can. The world is so village now. It's not like before when you wrote a letter to go someplace. It took 6 months before you get an answer. You get a letter right away. And so, I think we should stop speculating and listen to what the government said. In this particular incident, I believe that the government has done the right thing.
Ms. D, I think you have some correspondence from some
Yeah.
people in relation to it as well.
Yeah, and I think there is a general consensus around this table about stretching out a helping hand. And, as the Bible says, treat others the way you want to be treated as well. So there is that legitimate issue and legitimate concern, which I wholeheartedly agree with. But as you know, Caymanians also have this ongoing concern and frustration about not getting, equal opportunities in the community. In fact, a real fear about how this is going to affect them. Now, I say this in the context of, when you are out in the supermarket and you're up and about, people will always approach you and share some stories and experiences. You actually feel the fear. You feel the concern. You feel the experience. So if you want to assess the situation from their psychological perspective, and I'm the first person to say that I'm not a shrink, but as one human being to the next, you actually hear those genuine fears and concerns, and perhaps steps ought to be then taken by them to meet with their representatives to obtain the kind of consoling that they need to know that it's okay to lend that. And to be honest, I don't think we need to tell Caymanians that, because that's who we are by our nature. In fact, it's probably the reason why we're in this situation today. So I don't think we need to be preaching and so on, but I think that there needs to be a real effort on the part of our politicians to make it clear to Caymanians, that their interests are also being prioritized.
Yes. Folks, I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Dorrit Connor. My co-host with me this morning, Ms. Teresa Pitcairn, Dr. Steve McPhail. We're going to our 8 o'clock news. When we return, the discussion will continue. So don't change that dial. You may want to put it on pause if you have to, but don't change the dial. Stay right there, because we will be back immediately after the news. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record, a show that is designed to keep you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. And we're talking about all of those scenes this morning. And again, I want to repeat, and I may sound like a record, and someone may say, well, what is his agenda? And it is not, let me tell you, first and foremost, it is not to appease anyone, but this show, For the Record, is not designed and has no intention of being an anti-government, anti-PPM show. We're here to give you facts, we're here to give you information, and we get lots and lots of messages from people thanking us for opening their eyes, for giving information to them that they never had before, that they never knew about before. So it is intended to be an informative show, and that is what we strive to do. Yes, we will hold whomever is in charge and responsible, we will hold them to account. Sometimes we will do that on air, and sometimes if they're in the studio with us, we will do it off air as well. But whenever our guests come on to the show, we're always dignified, we're always polite to them, and what we try not to do is to ambush them in terms of any questions or anything. So I'm not apologizing for anything. Those of you who know us know exactly what it is all about. I do not have an agenda. Dorrit Connor does not have an agenda. There were people who were speculating that I would be using this radio show as a platform to launch my political career. I've been in politics all my life, ever since I came back to the Cayman Islands in 1983. I've been in politics, but in a quiet way. And my politics is in terms of empowering the Caymanian people. Dr. McPhail can speak for himself. Ms. Teresa can speak for herself as well. And I can tell you that none of us have an agenda. We're more than happy to keep you, our listening and viewing audience, informed. Now we'll get on with the business again. First of all, I made Awawa a little bit younger than she was. She's actually 92, 92 years young, and the lady is still traveling. We were talking to her the other day, and someone asked her, "Oh, how about you not scared to fly in a plane?" She said, "Scared?" He said, "I enjoy it." She said, "My daughter, Ellen, she goes to sleep on the plane." She said, "I'm right there,
Awesome.
I enjoy it." And she was telling us about a story when she was coming through JFK recently, I think last week, when she returned, coming through JFK, and she met a nice gentleman, and he asked her, where she was from, and she was telling him and everything, and he said, "Oh, I've always heard about the place. I always want, I've never gotten a chance to visit here," and stuff like that. Also, I'm asked, I want to wish Seaman Mr. Henry Connolly of Prospect and Cayman Brack. He's 78 years young today. He's 78 years as well. And a happy birthday from all of his seamen buddies. That is Mr. Henry Connolly of Prospect and Cayman Brack as well. So again, want to thank you for that. Now, Dr. McPhee, we never got on to the whole issue of the Jamaican Maritime Institute.
Caribbean Maritime
The
Caribbean Maritime Institute is located at Port Royal, Jamaica. And it's an institute that is set up by the government of Norway and Lloyd's of London. Mm-hmm. And you would say, why it's Norway and Lloyd's of London? Because Norway has one of the largest shipping fleets in the world, mm-hmm. and London is and Lloyd's of London is the insurance that insures most of the shipping. And so now, in the modern shipping days, it's not like when we went to sea in the 1950s and 60s. Now, most every position on a ship now is insured. You have to have the person is insured, and so now they want to know that you're qualified. So what they did, those two entities set up the shipping institutions all around the world. There is one in Mexico, and one in the Philippines, I think it is, and one in Jamaica. And what they do, they train you on every position on the ships, from master to chief engineer to deckhand to welder to anything that they do on the ship. You can go and get a certificate on it. And lately, it has been so successful because I think the last time I looked at the enroll, they had over 1,000 people in the Maritime Institute, Caribbean Maritime Institute in Port Royal, Jamaica. So now what they have, it guaranteed you. They guarantee you a job. In fact, their statistics show that 9 out of 10 people have a job before they are graduated to go on ships, and there are something like 65,000 vacancies on ships around the world for officers. 65,000 vacancies for officers alone for ships around the world. And so they, in order to keep up, they're making it a little more, already a little more stringent. Now they're moving towards...
Yeah, they're actually moving it to a parish of St. Thomas,
St. Thomas.
And they're going to rename it also.
Yeah.
They're going to rename it as the Caribbean Maritime University.
So you'll get a degree now.
Yes.
You'll get a degree and what we call it, be a captain. You'll get a degree, and first officer, chief officer, third officer, and so forth. Even they gave courses in welding and solar panel installations, anything that you can think about, and you can see their cadets all over the world and ships all over the world. And so that was one of the reasons why we formed the cadet service.
Cadet Corps?
Cadet Corps over 15 years ago. When we were doing the Cadet Corps, we envisaged that it would be off our national heritage, the Maritime Heritage, but people took it and put it under another sort of heritage, another heritage from other jurisdictions, and made it into our mini army. But and the problem with that is because we do not have an army to supply that we need cadets to supply. What we have is 5 branches of government that we need cadets to supply. And that brings me to an article in the paper today. about the police having a hard time recruiting Caymanians to join the police force. Well, the chickens are coming home to roost. You cannot discard all the people, the Caymanian people, all the people who had their careers in the police force. I know so many of them rose to be deputy commissioners, and they were chief inspectors and superintendent of police. They were all great people, given their service, and they all got rid of them, pushed them out. And so the young people now have the experience. Some of them probably were their aunts or their uncles, their aunts or uncles or brothers and sisters or their neighbors, some people they know. And so now a young Caymanian now who are articulate, who is intelligent and so forth, he's not going to join the police force readily unless you can guarantee that he's going to have a career there. And that's the reasons why we're in this this dire position that we're in now. Usually, if and I was just reading the newspaper this morning, and it shows that the other branches of government, even the prison, has more percentage people in their employment than the Cayman Island Police Force has, and it reminds me of what happened. You cannot have a master breathing down your neck and treating you like as if you are a slave. You cannot have a boss treating you as if you were a slave. It reminds me of what happened after emancipation in 1835. The slaves were treated so badly by their masters that after emancipation, they wouldn't work for the master anymore. And then we had what we call the Great Exodus to the Bay Islands. A lot of them left and went to the Bay Islands because they refused to work for the people who oppressed them and treated them like dirt. And so we have a similar situation in Cayman today.
Okay. We're going to go foreign for a minute. Elections in New Zealand on Saturday, hung parliament. It's going to take them weeks before we see any indication as to what the government, how the government is going to be comprised. We see Angela Merkel in Germany, but we see the far right nationalists, the AfD party has gained strength, and what have they vowed? They have vowed to fight, quote unquote, an invasion of foreigners into the country after winning its first parliamentary seats. Now here we have a European Union nation, huge, influential as far as the European Union is concerned. There are concerns about immigration. In the UK, there are concerns about immigration. But when our people here in the Cayman Islands express their concerns about the number of work permit holders, the fact that Caymanians can't get jobs, the fact that even government, when hiring, does not necessarily consider Caymanians first and does not necessarily follow the spirit and letter of the PMFL when it comes to the hiring of Caymanians. But when we talk about it here in our little island of 100 and something square miles, I say 144, somebody challenged me on that before, but I think the total of the three islands somewhere in less than 200 square miles, let's put it that way. And when we talk about that here in the Cayman Islands, for some reason, we're paranoid, we're this and we're that. And here we have these huge countries that have the ability to absorb people into their populations and have done so when it has come to refugees and everything else. But yet, their nationals, their people have concern about the influx of foreigners. But when we express it here in the Cayman Islands, for some reason we get lambasted, we're this, we're that, we're not allowed to speak for ourselves and try to defend our culture or traditions or legacy here in the Cayman Islands as well. We're going to take a commercial break. When we return, the conversation will continue. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We have one caller on hold. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, OC, and good morning to your two co-hosts. This is Gilbert McLean.
Good morning, Mr. McLean. How are you?
I am well, thanks. I have told you before that I'm an avid listener to your show, and I've had the privilege of actually filling in a few days for you. So I'm listening again this morning, and I couldn't help but absolutely agree with what you said earlier about the situation there in Germany and across Europe, it seems, and generally the world now, that people are saying, look, each of us have the right to live within our own boundaries, and we have to look out for our own people first. I certainly believe that, and that is where I think we are missing the point of the reality of the world situation, including the hurricane season at this time. I want to refer to what the first caller, the point that first caller raised, that about the persons who are said to be coming to the Cayman Islands. And last Friday's newspaper, there was an article which said there are like 170 hurricane evacuees, workers, spouses, children, and so on. And that there are 33 financial firms who wish to resettle or bring people here temporarily. Now, I don't know if we have that many financial firms here in Cayman, really. But I found it also interesting that some of the firms are from the Bahamas, one from Miami, which is the U.S. mainland, to say the least, and the majority, of course, is from BVI. Also, that article said that the persons could stay here temporarily for 60 days and not need work permits and so on, which is pretty much a natural. Mm-hmm. But if things are as bad as I have read and seen and heard, then we know 60 days is not going to cut it. It's going to be a situation where it's going to be a much longer time than that. And, you know, in this whole helping process, I can't but help think of the time when I was the minister and when Hurricane Ivan hit. The British did not come to our assistance. The first entity, and I keep saying it and I want to say it once again, that took a stand to help Cayman was the Bank of Butterfield, which pledged and paid $1 million to government to help in the reconstruction. And, you know, I also heard that the British warship Ocean, I think, just arrived in BVI, or one of the islands there.
Yeah, but I think it took them about 2 weeks. They were coming from Gibraltar. They had to go to Gibraltar and load, and they finally arrived, yes.
After 2 weeks. Yes. I watched it on the Weather Channel that they said the U.S. had 5 warships standing off and standing by to take care of the situation that obtained in Florida with doctors, with hospitals, with soldiers, with the whole work. And you wonder if Great Britain or UK didn't know or hear about the situation, that they would have got the ship a little closer, loaded up, and so on. Of course, there's also soldiers on board those warships. So couldn't they have been used or seen as a value, a major value, to be able to assist? Mm-hmm. We sent, I don't know, 20-odd, however many police officers to these islands to assist there, but yet we say we need 75 more police here. To me, it seems somewhat rather irrational. And the point that I really want to make is that was it last year, 2 years ago, whatever, we sent $500,000 to
Dominica,
one of the islands there.
Dominica.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you mean to tell me that up until now we haven't heard from the government here in Cayman whether they have any kind of official arrangements with England to reimburse us for the cost of Cayman Airways, for example, to go there? I heard it was 16,000 pounds of 1,600, I wouldn't swear on it, pounds of medical supplies. Are we going to just pay that, or is there going to be any kind of reimbursement to us? You know,
You think that we should require reimbursement, or shouldn't this be a show of good faith and goodwill on the part of the Cayman Islands people?
No, because I don't think that we have all the money that we pretend that we have, that we can give it away, considering, and I've heard it here on your show now, that the UK is the one that we're supposed to fall back on to help in these circumstances. Shouldn't there be some arrangements there for that to happen? You know, where are we? Are we just going to do that? It's not going to be reimbursed to us. Hurricane season isn't ended until the 30th of November, 2 odd months away. Oh, see, I think these are relevant questions that can be asked and should be asked, and the government should be doing or saying more than just flying over to one of the islands there, getting photo ops, and the UK saying what a wonderful group of people we are, and so on. So, you know, they're my thoughts this morning.
Okay.
When I look at our unfinished schools, our school children, and the people who are needing social service help, I can't but be humanistic enough to say, well, what about us and those who need?
Okay.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you very much, Mr. McLean. Thank you very much for that. And I should point out that we have one more caller here. We should also point out that the Cayman Islands, we are not the only country that is pitching in as well. We see supplies going from Barbados, from Trinidad.
And Jamaica, too.
Jamaica. The Bermuda Regiment took a military aircraft, and they are over there helping as well. So we're all pitching in because we never, ever know when we may find ourselves in the same situation. As a matter of fact, we found ourselves in that situation with Hurricane Ivan. We found it with Paloma, Hurricane Paloma, less so, but the BRAC, Sister Islands, they were, more damaged, and we were in a position to be able to assist them. During Hurricane Ivan, they were in a position to assist us. But there are other countries that are assisting as well in that regard. There's a saying that God doesn't sleep. And
God don't like ugly either.
Don't like ugly either, yeah. And it is important for us to humble ourselves, do what we can. Yes, we need to hold our government accountable to the fate of our people here in the Cayman Islands, but that's an ongoing dialogue. That's a day-to-day dialogue and fight that we have to have with our government in terms of ensuring that Caymanians are treated the way that they need to be treated as well.
See, OC, and I don't want to interject and be irreverent, but this is something on the minds of Caymanian people day in, day out. Right. And it is difficult. It can be difficult to compartmentalize that in a way that, you don't see. Caymanians are not mean people. We in fact, I would venture to say we're one of the most giving people. We have big hearts. So when we take on a conversation like this, which is almost anti who we are, we have to actually look into why we're behaving in this way, and I'll let the caller have a chat.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. That's a very, very good point.
Yeah.
We have 3 calls, so let's take the first caller. Good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And good morning to your panel.
Good morning, ma'am.
And Mr. O.C., like I say, Ms. George, I say, giving me my time, and I just want to wish her a happy belated birthday.
To run your mouth. Give you a chance to run your mouth.
I would die for. I wish a lot of other women at her age would come on and talk. But what I want to say this morning, I agree with a lot of stuff that Gilbert said. And, O.C. to know that we just sent over $50,000 out to one of those other islands with the hurricane problem some years ago, last year, I think it was.
500,000.
500,000.
Yes.
Okay. No, we never heard what did they accomplish from that. We never get back. No record saying we got 3 homes built, 2 cars purchased. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely nothing. But what I'm saying is, yes, we are here to help people.
Or if we did, that was never transmitted to the public.
Oh yeah. Well, anyhow, I just say that we got, like Gilbert said, we got 2 more months in the hurricane season. We got 100 now. Change of people just came over to stay with us for a while. I mean, if hurricane hits us between the next 2 months, then what's going to happen to them and us? You know what I mean? That's a thought. But what I want to say is that I met a gentleman from BVI, some time ago when I crossed the Kentucky Fried Chicken on going to the 7 Mile stretch. He said, "Whoa, you guys are civilized." And I'm like, "Really?" And I said, "Why did you say that?" He said, "Because we're not allowed to bring in restaurants into our country. We have to, do our own restaurants and serve our own foods." When we got to the 7 Mile Beach, he said, "Boy, you all is really, really civilized." I said, "Well, thank you." But anyhow, to say this, I know that they're having a warm time all over right now with these hurricanes hitting here and there. And we got to be so grateful and thankful that we're still pretty safe to an extent. But we got 2 more months to go. We don't know what's going to happen. But what I got to say, those people they brought over here, they could probably help themselves. What about the real needy ones that's left behind, that's scraping the ground to survive? We brought the best out and left the worst in to fight for survival. Like I said, 2 more things, I'm going to let you go. See the Sports Dock. They went up there and opened up that piece of property there for parking, right? They got a disposable toilet sitting right by the entrance to go down to the beach. They went up there and did some work and never seemed to they finished anything. The place is really hilly. The stand is filthy, and nothing has been done since they opened up that little parking lot there.
You're talking about the public beach up there?
Here by the cemetery, yes, that spot here. I mean, I was always told as a kid coming up, what is done by half is never done right. I just want to know who can call this morning and say that there's more work to be done at that public beach, because it needs to be enhanced a whole lot better, because they have a lot of local people going there and a lot of visitors going there, and that is not representable. For us, they can get on the radio and talk about tourism is up and tourism is this, but yet they come in here and got to go walk in all this dirty sand. They might as well go to California, walk California and dirty sand to get into the water. You know what I mean? Tourism need to do a whole lot better with our islands, start bragging what they got coming in. Spend the money on the beaches and make the place more comfortable. Well, thank you so much. You guys have a great day.
Thank you very much, caller. Very good points. We're going to take a commercial break now. When we return, we still have 2 more callers on hold, so please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly. Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. We're going straight to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, Mr. Risa.
Morning.
You sound like you're getting a cold or something.
No, looking up something here. Well, I'm listening. Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering if it is possible. You got promised me with the pinky finger. I can't see your pinky finger, but all 3 of you promised me, please, if we could cut out the 8 o'clock news, because that goes on and on and on. I know you got to do the commercials. I know that because that's where the money comes from. But cut out the 8 o'clock news, because this program has been very interesting. Very. The midday one is very interesting too, but this one is interesting and important for us to know what's going on. Now, I've heard all of you have mentioned that when is jobs available in government or whatever is available in Cayman, and it's qualified Caymanians out there, and they apply for the jobs, they should be first choice of that job, especially if they're qualified. Now, Mr. Ezard said on Friday that I've heard him with that over and over again, that the politicians do not choose the people for the jobs. Can any one of you tell me who does the choosing for jobs, and why is a Caymanian 98% refused even though they're qualified? Why is that, and why is that person, what does that person have against the Caymanian? If that person is a Caymanian themselves, hopefully they are, and why is nobody questioning that person? Why that the Caymanian can't get the job, and you're keeping the Caymanian out of making a living. Now, I can't listen. Well, I could listen because I'm going to the store. I want to say thank you for listening, but I would like for any one of you to answer these questions, because this need to be really dealt with from the government side, from every side possible. And I thank you, and I thank you for listening to me. Good morning.
Thank you very much, caller. If you continue to listen, I will read again, like I did on Friday, an email that I received from someone who was a former member of the Public Service Commission, and that person quite familiar with the public service and management and law, and what she, that particular person spoke about in relation to the hiring of Caymanians and Caymanian job applicants as well. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to Mr. O.C., Mr. Teresa, and Mr. Maxfield.
Sir.
I want to say, I listened to Gilbert spoke a while ago, and not bad person speaking, but I had a suggestion. Why do the government take a lot of men here that can't get a job over to that island and make them help them rebuild? Say, take 3 months or 4 months and come back and shift another group. And all they got to do is to take care of the family here. Government take care of the family here. So them can't get a job. They can't feed the family. They got to go social service. And they got to lose their homes and stuff. So take them over there, and then the government pays, give the family here someplace, some finance that they can live off of. I don't want to think about that. Okay, have a good morning.
Okay. If what I'm hearing there, Caymanians here could go over and work, and the government would support their family. Another option to that would be the financial support that government would want to give. You send people who are prepared to volunteer to go over to work there, but they're paid by the Cayman Islands government. They're paid by CIG, for that work that they do over there. Skilled or unskilled persons who could go. That would be a consideration as well, I believe. Good point.
Good
caller.
point.
Next caller. Good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, O.C.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning to your panel there.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Let me say what I got to say, and I'm going to say it without any excuse. How long ago Ivan came here at our island?
2004.
How many years was that?
13 years.
13 years.
13 years.
13 years, okay. Do you guys remember how many of those islands, people from those islands, the utility companies from those islands came into Cayman to help us put back our electricity and our water, our utilities? And I'm going to ask another question. How many of them were paid by England to do that? Or this all came out of the government's coffer and from those islands? We have a very short memory.
Yeah.
Where is our humanity towards these people? We should be jumping to help these people and assist these people. We don't know again when another Ivan will be hitting the Cayman Islands, and we might be in a worse situation and position of these people that these people are in today. That's all I want to say, gentlemen. Please, Caymanians, remember where we were, where we came from,
and where we could possibly be again.
Exactly. And caller?
Yes, sir.
And caller, it's worse now because I would say probably nearly half of those people don't even have a home now. Since Ivan, because of the foreclosure position that they found themselves in. So who's going to take care of them? If we have a disaster, it can be worse because we're going to have. And in fact, what we've heard on the radio here from people who call in, there's so many homeless people here. So we are in a worse position now than we were when Ivan. Some people are in a worse position now than they were when before Ivan came.
And Dr. Steve, I have to say this. I hear people call in the radio several times in the past
and condemning this $500,000 that we sent to one of those islands over there. I think it was 2 years ago. That is wrong.
And we should be happy
Totally
that we
wrong.
could send to others.
Yeah.
Exactly. Totally wrong. Anyway, I will let someone else call in because I know you don't have much time there, OC. You all have a nice day.
Can
Thank you very much, caller. One more caller. Let's see if we can grab that caller before we go to the 9 o'clock headline news. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. We lost that caller.
OC, can I say something?
Sure, go right ahead. Yes, you can.
Can
You're
I?
a co-host.
Right, because there are two issues here. There's the issue of lending a helping hand. And as I've said consistently on this show, Caymanians have a big heart. We're open and a giving people. The other issue is the beat down that we keep taking. And I'm hoping that when we say that we support our neighbors in the Caribbean and so on, we're not beating down on the same Caymanians who are saying, look, we want to give, we understand that it's important to give, it's in our nature to give, but somebody got to listen to us. You know, as Gilbert said, what about us? I think there are two separate issues here. Yeah? Okay.
And I understand that, but as long as we don't make one contingent on the other.
Yeah.
As long as we don't say, yes, we will give aid, we will give assistance, but we want this as well.
Yeah.
That but part of it, that's an ongoing dialogue. We have to fight that on a daily basis here in the Cayman Island. That fight goes on, unfortunately, ad infinitum.
Yeah.
Let's take one more call before we go to the break and relax the other caller to hold until after we go to headline news. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Yes, good morning.
Morning, Doc.
Morning.
Yeah, I recall that when Hurricane Ivan actually destroyed the island, or quite a bit of it, the first persons that came were on a British naval vessel. The second that came were from a regiment from Bermuda, because I remember cleaning up in Windsor Park alongside them.
Yes.
And I worked with them. I saw the spirit of cooperation and the desire to do as much as they could do. And they stayed here and they helped us at least to get started.
Yeah.
So we don't need to be, picking and saying that what we're giving, is more than what someone gave us, because the saying goes, to each according to his means. So we need to look at that as well. But people need to remember where they come from. And like Teresa is saying, we shouldn't confuse the two issues with in terms of the fact that the government does have obligations here. And I realize that too, because there's so much discrimination here that even when we refuse to give certain people opportunities or give certain people assistance because some of us feel that if we gave them that, we wouldn't be able to look down on them. But we have to also remember those persons who are complaining, have to also always remember that we are a Caribbean people, and we need to remember where we're coming from. We're coming from a common history. We're all struggling with neglect and poverty because we were neglected by those people who established these different settlements in the Caribbean. And I mean, we just have to understand the terrible things that have happened to them, and we have to be praying for them, and we have to be giving to them, and stop really bickering about this. Support the government at least in doing one thing. I believe that is worthwhile, and perhaps we need to encourage them to do more, of course, for the people on this island. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc. Thank you very much for that. We have no callers now. We have about a minute to go to headline news. Just want to point out that there's a regional organization, I think it is called CARILEC or something of that nature, where all of the utility companies throughout the Caribbean, they have standing agreements to assist other jurisdictions, and they send teams over there. We did the same thing when Bermuda, I'm trying to remember the name of the hurricane in Bermuda, we sent assistance over there to help to CUC sent their staff over there in relation to restoring power over there as well. We see the same thing CUC has done for Turks and Caicos Islands as well. So those organizations are put in place to assist each other with that. If I have enough time, Ms. Susan, I just want to say, in terms of employment and Caymanians, I promised that caller, the lady caller, that I would read what some former member of the Public Service Commission had made comments in that regard, and I will read that immediately after we come back from the headline news. I will read that for that benefit of that listener as well. Please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me this morning, Ms. Teresa Pitcairn and Dr. Steve Macfield. I just want to read in relation to the employment of Caymanians by Cayman Islands government. It says that the law and CIG policy has established that where there is a disparity in the points given to a Caymanian and a non-national, provided the Caymanian is not deemed to be less qualified by a margin of 5%, that job shall be given to the Caymanian. It is mandated. Come on. It is mandatory. The reason for this provision is that training or on-the-job experience will remedy the small defect in the Caymanians' qualifications, and rightly so. I am aware, and the person speaks about the inequity, I am aware that where this has happened, and Caymanians have won the appeal, but rather than being given a post, an identical post was created to avoid having to terminate the non-national with twice the salary being paid for the same job. This is at a very senior level. So it wouldn't cost the Caymanian government, if they were to follow the policy and the intent of the PMFL, it wouldn't cost them that much to have to create another position and then to also have to remedy the situation by paying the salary, whatever contractual agreement they have with the non-Caymanian, if that contract is for 3 years, whether or not they have to pay that person a 3-year equivalent of the salary for that period of time. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. Osby.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, Miss Teresa, and good morning to Dr. Steve Macfield.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, Miss Georgette.
And I trust all three of you and your family members are well. I thank God, as I told Miss Susan, for another day of life, and my family, they're all doing well. And I just want to say happy belated birthday to my dear friend, Mrs. Alvarne Watson.
Yes, ma'am.
And I would also like to say to Miss Marie Martin, I trust that your retirement you'll be contented and happy, and I know you will still take part in anything that pertains to children. And I ask God's blessing on you, Miss Alvarne, and all your family, and you, Miss Marie, and your family. And thank you very much, Mr. O.C., for giving me this time. And God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Ms. Georgia, and you have a great day as well. Next caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And good morning to your co-host. I just wanted to respond or maybe add my comment to a couple of the comments that were made earlier. First of all, as a proud Caymanian, I would like to say that when I saw and heard that Cayman were rendering help to the other islands, I was touched to the point of being very emotional. And then when we were able to see the pictures coming out of Dominica and Puerto Rico and places like that, I broke down and I cried because it took me back to 13 years ago when we were hit by Hurricane Ivan. And I know everyone is saying, different things about bringing these people here and, you bring them here, no, they're not going to want to leave and stuff like that. And charity begins at home. Why don't we help those who need help here? And all of that might be true on a different day at a different time. But, these people need help. And I'm happy that we as Caymanians, as small as we are and as little that we might have, that, we thought about helping these people. And just to continue that, I was wondering, and this is just my thought, yes, there are people here who need help, and I was just wondering if it might be possible if someone, it don't have to be the government, would just take up the charge to expand on that, it can be an ongoing thing, that, they can set up a sort of shelter and have people donate things there, clothing, food, whatever, and those in Caymanians who need, they can sort of go there and just shop and get from there what they need. I realize it won't provide them with a home, but at least it could provide with food and home supplies, baby supplies and stuff like that. So again,
and this would be on a regular basis, or
on a regular basis, just have it open.
Do we have something similar with the Red Cross now?
Well, I'm not going to mention the Red Cross. I was just thinking of someone or a small body of people who might want to take that up and do it, just so that the people in Cayman, the Caymanians who need, would have somewhere to go if they need clothing, food, baby supplies, things that people would normally pack up and send to another country that has been hit by a natural disaster or whatever the case might be. And I don't see where that would cost anyone very much if they're already willing to give. And of course that would be charity at home, but have it on an ongoing basis. And if you're running out of a certain type of supply, then just announce it on the radio that this is what is needed at this time. And it could, eventually expand, further into being a shelter for those who are homeless and may never be able to recover their home. And they don't have to sleep outside if that's then they can go there, sleep on a warm bed with a pillow and a blanket, That's just my thought.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, caller. I think we have one more caller, Miss Susan. Caller, good morning.
Yes, me again.
Okay.
Me again. I got to say one more thing here. Gentlemen, OC and Steve and Miss Teresa, if you're at home in a house sitting down by your table and there's no food around that table, how are you going to get food on that table? And, there's food out there in the market. Are you going to sit there all day and wish that food or something out of the sky, manna out of the sky will drop down on your table? No. And I'm drawing an example here of the Caymanians that sitting down and saying they don't have a job and can't get work. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big proponent of showing the country and the government where we as Caymanians are also being disenfranchised in our own country. Now, you know that. You all know that. I've been calling many, many times about that for years of discrimination against us Caymanians. But we have to look at it from another angle. We cannot sit down in front of that table and wish that manna will drop out of heaven on our table. I'm going to ask the question again, where are these people? I don't hear them. Where are their voices? Where are they that sitting down, waiting, and I don't know how they're getting it out in the public that they don't have a job. They can't get a job. But where are they? Nobody's going to come and bring that food to your table. Get up, move forward, and go and lobby your government and let them know what you need and try to put something together as a people. Show your competency and whatever it is that it takes to show your government that you are competent of coming forward to try to get a job. You all have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, caller, for that. Comments from anyone?
Well, I would say I would like to make a comment of the lady who called and opened this line of discussion up about jobs. I think we found ourselves in the position that we're in, most of us, some of us, is because we do not trust each other and we're not a cohesive people. As much as we say we are, we're not a cohesive people. And if I may have a minute to say, several years ago when my friend, my cousin and my friend John Henry Ebanks came back from New York, he was working with First City Bank of New York as the international auditor. And he came back here and we decided then that we would try to an association of young Caymanian businessmen and have a piece of the rock for ourselves. We met down at Captain Brian's restaurant, 13 of us, and we decided that we would form a Cayman corporation and that we would put in money into it and that we would take $1 million insurance on our lives, which we could afford. That was going to be any more like $20 a month. And it was a great day. 13 of us met. And they decided to meet the next week at Papagallo restaurant, and we left all our cars behind the library and we went to the Papagallo restaurant in Tropicana man's bus. And when we came back and we tried to put our money together to buy the piece of land, and the piece of land that we were looking at was where the Bank of Butterfield is now. It was being sold by Mark Alpine, and we thought that would be a good piece of land for us to Caymanians to own and put up our own building in Cayman. And we didn't get together because as soon as we got back, some people call up and say, boy, and say I can't meet again, I said, well, what happened? Say, my boss said that they see us all getting into this bus, going into all the black guys getting into this bus, and they said that we formed the Black Power movement, and so we didn't do that. And then later on, I decided that here are all the lawyers in Cayman. We were all sole practitioners, and I decided to call a meeting with 4 or 5 of them one day. And we decided to go to lunch, and I made a proposal. Let's all pool our resources, get together and form one Caymanian law firm that we can hire each other, that we can hire our students who come out of the law school. Everybody thought was a great thing. And at the time, we were all thinking about putting $100,000 each, going to the bank, getting the money, putting $100,000 each, buying a building or renting a building, and pool all our resources and having their own law firm, and bringing in people who could help us with things that we didn't know about, like mutual funds and stuff, where a lot of us didn't have that experience then about that, and it never got off the ground. Everybody did not want to be cooperate with the next person. We are not cooperative people. Some of the position, I would say 90% of the position that we find ourselves in, we have brought in our own selves because we cannot stand up. We don't like each other. We are just like crabs in a barrel, and we don't support each other. And so it doesn't take rocket science to know that people know that before they come here. And all they have to do is to push us, and we fall apart. And we go home and we sulk. And we do just like what the gentleman just said. We sit around the table and we say, well, we have no bread, we have no milk on the table, and we sit there and we sulk and we talk to people when we get out in the streets, but we will not stand up to do anything.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Go ahead.
Just to follow on, I think Dr. Frank often speaks of this level of cannibalism where we behave that way towards each other. But this morning, what I'd like to do is also to bring maybe some hope. And I say this, and I mean it might be a small thing, because I agree with what Steve says. And this is not necessarily to pump up Minister Rivers necessarily. I have a great respect for her. But what I'm talking about was the idea that she shared. And I say it as an idea in the context of the prisons.
Yes.
We talked about the public service management law. That is very, very, very clear about being an open and a fair process when you're about to employ someone. And Caymanians must be given that first preference when it's very clear that the Caymanian has the ability and whether the Caymanians have the credibility and wants that position based on merit. As you, OC, and Minister and former Minister Ezard said on Friday, we want to hold folks accountable. So there was a moment of fresh air that was shared by Minister Rivers, where she's saying we want to honor the spirit of the public service management law. We want to develop an environment where Caymanians are given that first opportunity when they submit an application for a job, and it is very clear, no matter who applies for the job, that the Caymanian be given that first preference. And I've heard you, OC, consistently saying that we're going to hold people accountable when they don't do it. So let us try. I know what we are feeling, But let us now also try to act on what is being promised, but do our part also by holding whoever is responsible accountable, whether it's in the government or whether it's in the private sector. And we must have a sensible conversation about this. This is not something that is out there where it's just on people's mind. This is a fact. It is a reality where Caymanians who are far more capable than the persons who are given the jobs, far superior, and they will train folks. The foreigner is given the job and not the Caymanian. We have to hold folks accountable and start having a sensible conversation about it, because this is not going to end in any peace. The level of intolerance that we're now seeing in the context of the hurricane situation, and this is not to say that, like I said, that Caymanians are not nice. You're seeing this right in the front and center of a situation where we know from our own personal experience what it's like to undergo a devastating hurricane experience. We know, we've been there, but yet we're saying, hey, look, what about us? So we have to take this seriously. It's not going to end this way.
Okay, we're going to take a commercial break. When we return, we'll have about another 10 minutes or so before the show goes off air. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly. Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. We have about 10 minutes left, so we're closing off the phone calls at this point in time. And I want to say to that caller who talked about the news break, I appreciate that. The news is important, and it is part of our sponsored content as well. I would have no qualms if the show went on until 10 o'clock. Maybe we can look at some other form of programming, or later than 10 o'clock, whatever. Look at some other form of programming. If the demand out there is for that, if people want to hear more, want to be able to participate longer, then send us your emails. Let us know about that. I guess we can do, what is it called again? A Survey Monkey poll, and see how many people are in for that, and then management can take it under consideration. Before I pass the mic over to my two co-hosts, I just want to say Hurricane Fabian hit Bermuda in early September of 2003, around about the 5th of September 2003. One of the few hurricanes in Bermuda that resulted in fatalities. September 2003. 1 year later, we were hit by Hurricane Ivan. Now, when Fabian hit Bermuda, it literally cut the island in half as far as transportation is concerned, because the bridge that you go over to get to the airport in Bermuda, that was destroyed. A police officer and a civilian, I believe, lost their lives. They were washed away on that bridge as well, because the police officer went out there to try to rescue someone. 1 year after that devastating hurricane, Bermuda had no qualms in terms of sending the Bermuda Regiment here in the Cayman Islands to assist us. And I recall that just before their departure, there was a big shindig for them down at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel by the management of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel to show their appreciation for what had been done for us by the Bermuda Regiment. I just say that again to say, that we should have no qualms. There should be no strings whatsoever attached to whatever assistance we give to our neighboring brothers and sisters in the Eastern Caribbean. There should be no strings attached financially or otherwise to whatever we do to assist them. None. No strings attached. Nada, nada, nada. Pass the mic over to my co-host.
Yeah, I just want to make one small comment in the context of, and I'll just give my time as Maxine Waters does to Steve afterwards. But what I'd like to say is in the context of what MLA Ezard McLean shared with us on Friday about the number of students, over 1,000 students.
Ezard Miller.
Gosh.
I did that one time too as well.
I am so...
Linked them by the hip.
I am so sorry. Ezard, please forgive me. But that's with a lot of love. And I have a great respect for the folks that we elected in any event. But what I'd like to say in that context, and certainly in the context that Gilbert raised about what about us, when I'm out and about, people will stop me. There was one lady in particular that stopped me when she made a comment about Dr. Macfield and the parallel with us being on the reserves. We say that our children and our elderly are folks that we value, but it's not uncommon, as I now understand it, for our young kids to actually go home and are being responsible for taking care of the elderly as well when they go home. So that also prevents our kids from not necessarily learning, but it the added responsibility of behaving like an adult puts them in a position where, their studies are compromised because of the additional responsibility. I say that, though, about the responsibility that we have as a people and as a government when we're going to take care of the kids and the elderly who certainly paved the path for us to have the community that we enjoy today. And perhaps more attention should be paid in this area. If what folks are saying to me is true about these additional responsibilities that we have, and it partly explain, I believe, the concerns that Caymanians have on their mind about the whole unemployment issue and the state in which it puts you when you're unemployed, when you're at home. I heard one of the callers speak to, folks getting up and getting about and demanding and so on. But when you're beaten mentally day in, day out about what you are not and made to feel as though you don't have any value. And I preface this with the comment I usually raise about Eleanor Roosevelt when we say that people treat you the way you give them permission to treat you. But when you are being told from the time you're in school that you're less than and you will never be as good as certain folks, that has a reverberating effect on the individual in the long term. Now, I'll give my time to Dr. Macfield.
Well, I would just like to read something I wrote many months ago. I think it's relevant today, and I think that and this is to the woman who called. I would like you to listen to what I have to say here because I think it's relevant today. I remember after emancipation how what we forgot about the bondage that we were in, and we moved on, and we tried to forge a country that we could live in and that we could sustain ourselves. But that is all going now. Like I say, the whole concept of the global village is has caught up with us, and there are people who would want our very not only our land that we live on, but our very soul, and to push us backwards so that we are on a physical reservation. We are already now on a mental reservation, and so the next step now is to put us on a physical reservation. So I just like to read this to you so that you can take some solace in what I have to say. And I begin. Two of the most brutal defeats that any people can suffer are the obliteration of their history and the colonization of their minds. The obliteration of a people's history is more devastating than the destruction of their city, and the colonization of their minds is to rob them of their souls. These two evils, obliteration of history and colonization of the mind, take away cultural, psychological, and historical independence. The Caymanian people's history has nearly reached the stage of obliteration, and the minds of some are colonized to the point that they seem to have lost the will to believe in their ability to sustain their existence and to forge ahead without depending on others who despise them to show them the way. Therefore, Caymanians' principles must be clear and not wishy-washy if they are going to survive together and not be overcome by the evils of history and the mindlessness of a destructive propaganda machine. The symptoms of backward thinking, poverty, and crime tells me that we are already affected by these two evils. If we are not able to revive our heritage and free our minds, the resulting failure is surely to be economic instability and complete loss of self-worth. And our politicians, some of whom are grotesquely comical versions of the obliterators and colonizers, are doing little or nothing to guide us and to protect us through these times of fragility and uncertainty. Despite the enormous costs on the public purse to pay them to get together in the Legislative Assembly to make policy and laws for our peace, order, and good governance, some of them have failed us miserably. The Legislative Assembly membership is about leadership. It is not about a secure paycheck and a guaranteed pension for life. It is not a forum to guide policy and push through laws that benefit family and friends. Indeed not. It is a chamber where the construction and compromise work together to benefit all the people. It is the constitutional chamber where the rights of the people are protected and their needs and well-being are vested constitutionally. It seems to me that some legislators have little or no interest in bringing the people together to build a future for them and their children. The Constitution is in most parts ignored, and the people's ability to self-respect and economic dignity are replaced by cheap, indentured slave labor that politicians use to further subjugate the people who they are supposed to liberate. One of the most pressing and fundamental things that the new 19 legislators have to do now is to define in legislature terms the rights of Caymanians to jobs and equal protection pursuant to Section 16 of the Constituted Entrenched Bill of Rights. For the lack of defined social, economic, and educational vision will not move this country forward. Elected politicians should possess the political skills to solve their people's problems and provide their people's needs without having to resort to giving away their people's money to so-called experts who charge them large sums and then tell them what they refuse to believe from their own people. That corrupt symbiotic bargain needs to be vacated and money used for such be diverted to help relieve the economic burden of the poor and feed the young to grow strong in body and in mind to assist them to have a fighting chance to survive in this global desert. Also, the politicians who are elected to the Legislative Assembly and appointed to the cabinet must demonstrate some semblance of guts, grit, and greatness. It will not be enough just to ride around calling oneself minister, warming cabinet seats and voting yes or nay. The people pay for relief, but are damned down by positions of power, privilege, and collective irresponsibility. The people want their political and constitutional rights to be respected and protected. But most of all, the people demand that those who are vying and trying to get their support pledge that on receiving the privilege to represent them will pledge to protect their narrative from obliteration and bring forth reforms to free their minds from the destructive deliberation elements of colonization. On the other side of the equation, Caymanian voters have to cease from hiding in their cars and behind hedges, and they must come out. And every voter who voted politicians in office must come out and stand up and ask the questions that needs the answers. After all, the voter is the boss. He's the employer. And in this situation, I don't see any bosses hiding from his employee unless, of course, he has not paid his employee his salary. Fortunately, or unfortunately, in our case, our legislators, our employees can pay themselves their own salaries. Once voted into office, now the voters becomes the employee. But that is the nature of Caymanian politics. One person, one vote. And that we have gotten that now, and we must ask the tough questions now of what they are going to do now to help the Caymanian people survive in this village, like I say, because if we don't survive, we are all going to go down in this ship together.
Folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman and by extension for the record into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. I also want to remind you that we are our brothers and our sisters' keepers. There is always someone out there who's less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to extend a helping hand to them. If you can't do that, then I suggest you donate to a worthy charity, because we always want to consider those who need, not necessarily those who want. I say to you, have a great day. Continue to support your radio station, Radio Cayman. Join Sterling Dwayne Ebanks at 12 noon for a talk today. And as usual, we ask the good Lord to bless these three beautiful, wonderful Cayman Islands.
Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record.